In every neighborhood, there's an unspoken promise. We wave to the people across the street, smile politely at the couple walking their dog, and trust that if something went wrong, a neighbor will be the first to help. But what happens when that trust shatters? What happens when the person living just a few feet away becomes your greatest threat? This is a story of how simple disputes, over fences, children, noise, or dogs, spiral into deadly confrontations. It is a story about America's gun culture, about the controversial stand your ground laws, and about how fear and race continue to shape who lives and who dies. It is the story of how the idea of the perfect neighbor became an illusion. The dream of suburbia has always been sold as a promise. Quiet streets, perfect lawns, a safe place to raise children. Since the 1950s, moving to the suburbs has meant escaping the chaos of the city and finding peace behind a white picket fence. But beneath the manicured lawns and holiday decorations, tensions simmer. Diversity has transformed neighborhoods across America. Families from different backgrounds now live side by side, sharing fences and sidewalks. For some, this is a symbol of progress. For others, it is a source of unease. And when suspicion grows, the fence that once symbolized safety becomes a barrier of distrust. Ask anyone who's lived in a neighborhood long enough, and they'll have a story. A neighbor who plays music too loud, a barking dog, kids trespassing to retrieve a ball. Small annoyances at first, but sometimes these irritations grow into something darker. In Florida, a black mother of four was shot through her neighbor's door after years of conflict. In Georgia, an argument over a barking dog ended with gun drawn. In Texas, a dispute about parking escalated into fatal gunfire. These stories may sound extreme, but they are far from isolated. Across the country, a disturbing pattern repeats itself. A simple disagreement, a weapon introduced, and a tragedy that leaves families shattered. What makes these stories chilling is not just violence itself, but how ordinary they begin. In 2005, Florida introduced a law that would change the fabric of neighborhood disputes forever. It was called Stand Your Ground. The law removed what's known as the duty to retreat. In other words, if you feel threatened, you don't have to back down or walk away. You are legally allowed to use deadly force if you believe your life is in danger. On paper, this sounds like protection, but in practice, it creates a dangerous loophole. Fear, whether real or imagined, becomes justification for pulling the trigger. The most infamous example came in 2012. George Zimmerman, a neighborhood watch volunteer, shot and killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. Zimmerman claimed he feared for his life. The jury acquitted him. The case exploded into national spotlight, igniting debates about race, justice, and the true cost of stand your ground. Statistics reveal the troubling truth. When the victim is black, the shooter is far more likely to walk free. In the courtroom, perception is everything. And in America, perception is deeply influenced by race. One summer evening in Ocala, Florida, 35-year-old Ajike Owens walked over to her neighbor's house. She was a mother of four, known for her warmth and strength. That day, her children had been yelled at by the neighbor, and she wanted to address it. She knocked on the door. She never got an answer. Instead, a gunshot rang out. Ajike collapsed on the ground, her children watching in horror. She was unarmed. She posed no threat. But the shooter, a white woman, claimed she feared for her safety. Stand your ground became her defense. For Ajike's family, the shooting was more than tragedy. It was evidence of how bias and fear, armed with the protection of the law, could erase a mother's life in an instant. Her children are left without a mother. Her community is left with grief. And her case forces us to ask, how much fear is enough to justify killing? And whose fear matters most? America is a country with more guns than people. For some, owning a firearm is about safety, about protecting the home and family. But for others, guns symbolize something far more dangerous. Fear. Fear of crime. Fear of strangers. Fear of neighbors who look different. Research shows that Black and Latino individuals are more likely to be perceived as threats, even when unarmed. In one study, participants were faster to shoot images of Black men in simulations than white men, even when holding identical objects. This is where guns and race collide. Because when fear meets firepower, tragedy often follows. Stand your ground doesn't require proof of danger. It requires belief. And in America, belief is often shaped by prejudice. Self-defense cases rely on perception. Who felt threatened? Was their fear reasonable? But whose perception counts in court? Studies reveal that when the shooter is white and the victim is black, juries are more likely to accept the shooter's fear as reasonable. When the roles are reversed, the outcome shifts. This creates a chilling reality. The same law does not apply equally. One person's fear is another person's life. And the scales of justice tip according to race. For grieving families, this is not justice. It is injustice written into law. Every time a neighborhood dispute ends in gunfire, the damage extends beyond the crime scene. Children lose parents. Parents bury children. Communities fracture. The house next door no longer feels safe. The neighbor across the fence is no longer just difficult. They are dangerous. The very fabric of community trust unravels. And the dream of suburbia, the promise of safety and peace, fades into a nightmare. But the story doesn't end in despair. Across the country, communities are fighting back, not with guns, but with dialogue, mediation, and reform. Activists are calling for stand-your-ground laws to be re-examined or repealed. Legal experts argue for clearer definitions of what constitutes reasonable fear. Community groups are creating spaces for neighbors to resolve disputes before they spiral out of control. It is not easy work, but it is necessary. Because without change, the cycle of suspicion, confrontation, and violence will continue. We all want the perfect neighbor. Someone who smiles when they see us, who looks out for our kids, who makes us feel safe. But as long as fear rules over understanding, as long as laws protect bias more than life, the idea of the perfect neighbor will remain just that, an idea. The real question is not whether we can find the perfect neighbor, but whether we can become one. Because peace doesn't begin with fences. It begins with us.